tears of the narcissist. Not all narcissists cry, but many do. The greaters and the ultra do not. There might be one tear squeezed out in certain circumstances, but even then it is very rare. You don't get the floods of tears, the trickle, the filling up eyes, the wailing and the lamenting. That doesn't happen with the greaters or the ultra. Tears can occur with lesser narcissists, but they're still relatively rare, particularly lower lesser and upper lesser, type A and type B. They can cry, but it doesn't happen too often. Middle lessers are more likely to do because of the streak of mid-range they have running through them. The crybabies are the mid-rangers. Even the haughty and arrogant mid-ranger will utilise tears on occasions. Sometimes it is done to exhibit frustration. Sometimes it is done as part of a pity play. The bigger crybabies are lower mid-range, middle range A, and most of all, the biggest babies of them all, the middle range type B. You may have noticed that the narcissist in your life isn't one that was given to displays of tears particularly often, and it may have caused you to wonder if they actually ever felt sad, or whether they actually felt remorseful in a situation that would make you or other people cry, but not them. As I have explained before, narcissists don't feel sadness. We don't feel remorse. We don't feel upset, but we are able to replicate it should it suit our purposes. But whether we do depends very much upon the circumstances and the relevant school of narcissist. When the tears do start to flow from a particular narcissist, however, the effect is rather startling. You are often surprised by the sudden anguish that is exhibited. You're taken back by the torrent of tears which flood from his or her eyes, trickling down the cheeks and dripping from the chin, the sobbing, and the snivelling, the heaving chest and the hunched shoulders. What a performance! It is as if melancholy has alighted on the shoulders of that relevant narcissist and taken up an intense residence. You may even be shocked at the force of the outburst. The appearance of such sadness may well surprise you, both in respect of its infrequency, where you're dealing with middle lesser, upper mid-range narcissists, lower lesser also, but also you'll be surprised by its intensity. You may not know that the narcissist could be so capable of such an expression of grief, such apparent sadness and such woe. The twisted face, the expression of regret and remorse, the cascading tears and the trembling clasped hands, all combine to create this masterpiece. For a masterpiece is what you are being shown, because this is the result of the narcissist's careful scrutiny of you and others when they are upset. Once again, the imitation game is in full effect. All the narcissist is doing is taking the times that he or she has witnessed you or other people being upset. For instance, a friend has lost their job or a relative is ill, or most often because we've upset you through either what it is we have said and done. And the responses of you and the friend and the relative and the person at work and the stranger are watched and, where lesser or mid-range, unconsciously utilised for further use with regard to the portrayal of this grief. A greater and ultra can evidence grief. Again, it's not felt, but there will be no tears. It is the correct things to say. The studious, quiet, almost Anthony Hopkins ability of looking out of a window, staring into the distance, appearing intense and ruminating on something of great consequence. But where the tears flow, that has been as a consequence of the narcissist observing how it is done in other people and again replicating it. The narcissist has observed the sadness of others and the upset of others, and then it is committed to memory by the narcissism, ready for the narcissism to call on it further down the line as part of the manipulation by way of pity play. The performances are often accurate, spectacular, and memorable, if all for the wrong reasons. It is, of course, designed as a pity play to assert control over you and others by the appearance of being grief-stricken, by being concerned, by causing you to elicit sympathy and support. But all it is a performance. There is no actual grief felt by the narcissist. There is no sadness. The tears and the appearance are all entirely manufactured. But how is this possible? What is the narcissist actually feeling when they are going through this performance? They believe, of course, because the narcissism compartmentalizes them and causes them to think this way, that these tears are utilized as part of being genuinely sad. The lesser or mid-range narcissist that cries does so believing that they are struck down with grief, hurting so badly, crying through frustration, even in some instances, tears of joy. But focusing on the tears that arise from being hurt and grief-stricken, the narcissist believes that that is the case. But what is really happening is they are merely crying for themselves. The threat to their control causes their narcissism to spring into action as a self-defense mechanism. And when the narcissist appears to be crying for another person, they are not. They are crying for their own purposes. They are crying because, in that unconscious, the narcissism is saying, you are being treated unfairly, your control is being affected. And therefore, the appropriate response, because you are not getting what you need, is to cry for yourself so that you will then get what you require. Other people will be moved to ask how you are, to put their arm around you, to say, there. Put on that show. And therefore, the crying for oneself that is exhibited principally by the mid-range narcissists is something that allows the assertion of control and the gathering of fuel from other people. Tears are a powerful method of conveying emotion, and the impact is magnified by the melodrama caused by the narcissist. Of course, some of our kind struggle to squeeze out the tear, that there is the sobbing, yet the tears do not flow. There's all the noise of upset. There's the heaving shoulders, the contorted face, the reddening of the face, yet the eyes remain dry. And that is a narcissist that is unable to replicate that aspect of grief successfully, because the narcissism hasn't honed that element. And therefore, the pretense of grief is all the more transparent as not being genuine grief because of the absence of actual tears. And where they do appear, as you know, they are, of course, the crocodile tears. And the fact is that those crocodile tears are a means of manipulation. It is a means of turning on the waterworks, often as a preventative hoover to stop you leaving. And where you're dealing with a narcissist that doesn't often cry, then this last resort, turning on the tears, turning on the waterworks, is dramatic indeed. It might have been the case that there were other events, such as job loss, financial concerns, health issues and bereavements, which ought to have had the narcissist crying, or at least looking upset, but they didn't do so. Why? They didn't actually feel upset, and moreover, the narcissism determined it wasn't necessary to show upset. And therefore, you were provoked into a reaction by the absence of the tears, the seemingly unfeeling, and quite correctly unfeeling, behaviour of the narcissist. You were shocked at the absence of this grief. But the narcissism determined that the narcissist didn't need to do this to assert control and gain fuel. Didn't need to do it to fit in. so it didn't happen. And then, when the need arises, all of a sudden the waterworks are turned on, and it becomes all the more shocking to you because you've never seen it before. A show is put on, and it is only done when the narcissism recognizes that it is necessary to do it. It's deemed necessary because there is a clear and immediate risk to the narcissist losing the intimate partner primary source. And therefore, it places the narcissist in a perilous position, particularly if the replacement has yet not been brought online. This sudden outburst of violent grief may well shock the victim into remaining in situ, asking what's wrong, trying to make the narcissist feel better. These tears are a powerful method of conveying emotion, and where there are narcissists that cry rarely, the impact is magnified. Of course, driven by emotional thinking, corrupting the empathic traits, causing you not to realise that you're dealing with a charlatan, you want to help and to heal. And therefore, this quite spectacular display of tears and expressions of sorrow and remorse allows the narcissist to manipulate the intimate partner primary source or another appliance in changing the decision to leave. The change of stance means that the individual is drawn back to us and becomes ensnared once again. Tears are utilised by narcissists purely as part of a manipulation. Whether it is the narcissist that doesn't cry often and then suddenly erupts as an act of last resort, or the more habitual criers, the lower mid-range, the middle range A, middle range B, who use tears often and regularly as part of a pity play to influence and manipulate. But what is important for you to understand is that the hurt is only for themselves and is never for anybody else, although of course the lesser and mid-range never realise that. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.